There are a number of particularly low points in the history of the children of Israel that we read about in the Old Testament. Today's reading is about one of them, around the time when the Ark of the Lord was captured by the Philistines. Our reading is taken from 1 Samuel chapter 4 and it's verses 19 to 21. Phinehas' wife was with child, near to be delivered. And when she heard the tidings that the ark of God was taken, and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed herself and travailed, for her pains came upon her. And about the time of her death, the woman that stood by her said unto her, Fear not, for thou hast borne a son. But she answered not, neither did she regard it. And she named the child Ichabod, saying, The glory is departed from Israel, because the ark of God was taken, and because of her father-in-law and her husband. And she said, The glory is departed from Israel, for the ark of God is taken. The Ark of the Covenant was the symbol of God's presence among his people. It was kept in the holiest part of the tabernacle, the Holy of Holies. So holy was the ark that into that place went the high priest alone once every year, not without blood, which he offered for himself and for the errors of the people. Hebrews 9 verse 7 tells us. The children of Israel were forbidden to look on that golden chest with its lid of pure gold called the mercy seat. Much less were they permitted to carry it into or onto a battlefield. In the earlier verses of this chapter, we read that the Philistines joined battle with Israel, and Israel was smitten before the Philistines. That's in verse 2. What was to be done in the face of this great defeat? Someone had this idea: let us fetch the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts, that when it cometh among us, it may save us out of the hand of our enemies. Verse 3. There was no calling upon the Lord. There was no turning in repentance and faith, but an ill-conceived idea that it might magically save them. That such an idea was suggested indicates that their sense of the holiness of their God had disappeared. They had forgotten that it was the presence of their God that was of the greatest importance, that the value of the ark was in the God who was enthroned upon it. It appeals to me that they had begun to view the ark as some kind of talisman, a lucky charm that would afford them protection in battle. That's why they spoke about it saving them out of the hand of their enemies in verse 3, rather than the Lord saving them. It's also the reason why I believe the Lord allowed the Philistines to capture the ark. I think that such an attitude is a very serious thing. It is so easy to place value on things, on objects or items, rather than on the Lord himself. In Romans chapter 1 verse 25, Paul wrote about those who worshipped and served the creature, the created thing, more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. We should never imagine that sacred things have a kind of intrinsic spiritual power, or that we can draw spiritual resources from them. Those resources that we need, those spiritual resources, are only found in God himself. He is sufficient for us. If we reduce our faith to relics and ritual rather than reliance on God, it will become the empty religion of the children of Israel, described in verse 21 as Ichabod. The glory is departed from Israel. If we leave God out, there is nothing left of any value. Let us remember that we must honour God. We must worship him alone.